Hello, today is Monday, June 22nd. I thought today that I would speak to a film that I saw recently that's on the older side, Fallen from 1998, starring Denzel Washington, John Goodman, and Donald Sutherland. It's a little bit of a dead zone for new movies in the theater, at least for me. If you know anything about me from these videos that I've done, I love movies, specifically horror films. I'm really looking forward to Evil Dead Rise next month, even The Odyssey, and then the new Insidious film in August. But in the meantime, I'm just catching up on some streaming, some old and some new. And I saw recently that Netflix had put Fallen on their streaming catalog, and I had actually never seen it, although I've seen it referenced on a lot of the horror sites that I follow, horror groups and sites. So I thought that I would watch it and had an opportunity to watch it last night. And I did like it, so I want to talk about a few things that I personally liked about it, and then one of the things I didn't care for as much, but may just be a result of the fact that it's almost 30 years old now. So what I did like about it is that it is familiar territory. So I love the show Supernatural, and I may have mentioned previously that my favorite subgenre of horror is the occult horror. So angels and demons, God and the devil, ghosts, witches, spirit mediums, things like that. All because, I don't know, it's spooky because it seems like it could be real, right? So the film Fallen deals with basically a demon, and the demon is actually named Azazel, which was the name of the yellow-eyed demon in Supernatural. So again, familiar territory. And this demon can possess individuals through touch. Not all individuals, however. However, if his vessel dies while he is inhabiting it, he has only a certain amount of time to make it to another vessel. Therefore, being desperate, he's even more powerful and can get into the body of any man. And John, I think that's his name, the Detective John, I can't remember his last name, Denzel Washington's character, cannot be possessed simply through touch. And that's part of the premise of the film, is that these demons, they stalk those that try to capture them. So it's a little bit circular. Denzel Washington has been chasing this demon for years, and then this demon starts chasing him. And most people can be infected through touch by this demon, can be possessed. So the demon starts tormenting Denzel Washington. There's a little bit of a mystery as he tries to figure out what's going on. And that's another thing that I really appreciate, is that he doesn't spend too long questioning what's going on. He seems to figure it out pretty quickly and then try to come up with a solution. So I really do like that it hits familiar territory. Something else that I really liked about it were some of the philosophical discussions that were had during the film. There's one point where, even though Denzel Washington's character is being just faced by a demon, it's pretty obvious to him that he's being stalked by a demon at this point, he still has this conversation about heaven and hell and a plan and what's going on with his partner, Jonesy, played by John Goodman. And Jonesy says, well, maybe once you figure it out, that's when your number's up. You know, something to that effect. And I really like that concept. It's something that I think of myself. And it's one of the things we talked about in my yoga teacher training when we were talking about philosophy and what karma is. So people think of karma as what goes around, what comes around. But in the yogic description or definition, it's not really quite that. When you do things that you set yourself apart from others, when you attack others, when you do bad things to other people, you increase your karmic load. So the idea is that we all came from a singular source. And when consciousness met matter, that's where ego came into it. So we're all trying to work through however many existences it takes to get back to that source, back to that oneness. So every time you do something against someone else, you're setting yourself farther and farther back from that goal. So it's a justification I use myself when people and pets that pass away. I tell myself, their work was done. They were ready to move on to the next step, right? So I kind of liked that discussion of that concept. And I know that it's not original or anything, but it's just something that I hold close to myself, something that helps me get by. And then the thing I didn't care for as much, and this could just be a result of the fact that this is a common subgenre of horror. It could be because this movie is 30 years old and really there are only so many stories you can tell, but I knew what was going on pretty close, like how the story was gonna end. I had an idea how the story was gonna end. And they do give it away in the beginning, but it wasn't because they gave it away in the beginning that I knew what was going to happen. So, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen this almost 30-year-old movie, I mentioned that the demon can only survive for so long outside of a vessel. So Denzel Washington's plan is to get this demon isolated, take out whatever vessel it's inhabiting, possessing, and then also kill himself so that hopefully that demon can't find another body to possess before he dies, and that's how he would die. At the start of the film, you see Denzel Washington trampling through the woods, talking about how he doesn't know how it would come to this after all these years. How could he be beaten? Something to that effect. And then talks about how he's going to tell the story about how he almost died. And it becomes apparent all of the other vessels are dead. Denzel Washington has poisoned himself. Azazel possesses Denzel Washington, trying frantically to get to the car, get somewhere so he can find another vessel, and then takes over Denzel Washington's voice. So at this point, it should be obvious. However, I had already figured it out before then, and I'm not tooting my own horn. And I don't necessarily even consider it a weakness of the film. I think it could just be because it's an older movie, and I've seen a lot of movies, and sorry, cats and dogs are fighting. Earlier in the film, you see Azazel's perspective through the eyes of a cat. Also, earlier in the film, Denzel Washington goes to this isolated cabin where that final scene, that final confrontation takes place. And there is a cat at this isolated cabin. So when they're having their final showdown, I just said to John, I bet he's gonna jump in a cat. And I guess the filmmaker is expecting that you'll forget that he can be in a cat. And I guess maybe I would feel upset if they hadn't tipped off that he could possess animals earlier in the film, but maybe it just gave it away. And I don't know if this is just me, again, or if it's something that was very obvious to people who saw the film when it came out in the first place. But anyway, it was still an enjoyable film for me to watch. I definitely watched a lot of those psychological thriller / horror films in the 90s with my parents, with like Ashley Judd and Morgan Freeman. Some of them had something supernatural going on, some of them didn't. So it was also a little bit nostalgic for me. And production-wise, it was well made. I mean, the acting, of course, was amazing. And then, the only thing I would say that maybe it needed was a sound engineer, because like a lot of older films, and we have really good surround sound in our house, it just was hard to distinguish. It would get loud and then it would get quiet. You couldn't hear people talk. So, I mean, it's pretty common practice for us to have subtitles on anyway. But yeah. I would still recommend watching it if you haven't. I mean, I guess I kind of gave away what happens, but it's still a fun movie, and sometimes it's about the journey. I love to be able to sit and watch a movie. That's why I love going to the movies. No distractions, and they're just really, I don't know. I guess that's the whole point of these talks, right? Focusing on the things that I love, that other people love too, and, hopefully inspiring other people to take some time to remember even the little things and how sometimes they're what make our whole world go round. Anyway, that's Fallen, and that's about all I have to say. I'll be back again later to talk about something else. I hope you have a great night or morning or whatever, whenever you're watching this, and I'll talk to you later. Okay, bye.